Hello and welcome to Oh My Yoga Academy Class Flow 2. This is part of our Module 1 content, so if you're one of our students or graduates, thank you for joining us, and if you are someone just here to enjoy the class, thank you as well. We're going to begin this practice in mountain pose, so bring your hands to your heart or to your chest and your belly, and begin by grounding and settling with a few deep breaths. When you're ready, begin to open your eyes and come into a regular mountain pose, just sensing and feeling your feet on the ground and the length through your spine all the way up to the crown of your head. We're going to begin by coming into a forward fold and taking some halfway lift flows. So, if you're not there already, come to the top of your mat and take a strong reach up and overhead. Hinging from your hips, lower down gently into your forward bend. From here, take a slow, deep inhalation as you slide your hands up your shins, looking forward at the ground about 2 or 3 feet in front of you. As you exhale, lower back down into your forward bend. Continue to move at your own breath pace, lifting and lowering as you inhale and exhale. If you'd like, you can try these with your hands on the ground, just lifting your palms up and down. When you feel ready, press into all 4 corners of your feet and slowly hinge all the way up. We'll reach right into an extended mountain and bring the hands together and slowly lower into a chair squat. Begin to flow between these 2 postures with your breath, inhaling as you reach up and exhaling as you lower back down. On our next one, we'll come down through chair and then hinge all the way into a forward fold. We're going to hold here for about 3 breaths just to get settled a little bit more deeply into our practice. So feel free to put your hands on the floor, on some blocks, or even to take ragdoll arms. When you're feeling ready, release your hands back down to the earth and slide up to your halfway lift again, taking a little pause right here. And then circle sweeping all the way up to extended mountain and bringing your hands to the front of your chest. At this point, we're going to turn towards the long edge of your mat. So take your time to get there and externally rotate your hips so that your toes are pointing towards the corners, the edges of your mat, and you're in this cowboy or cowgirl position. From here, we're going to continue warming up the body with some flowing wide-legged squats. So let's inhale and reach all the way up, and then exhale to slowly lower down, imagining that you're sitting down into a low stool. Breathe in to rise, and breathe out to lower. Continue moving at your own breath rhythm. It doesn't have to match mine. Let your breath be your guide. If you'd like to change up the arms, you can start to bring your hands out to the sides into a T shape, and then reach back up to put the palms together. Another option is to add a little half fold right here. Circle sweeping the arms out and around as you hinge forward and then reaching back up. As an extra brain balancing challenge, you might try putting a different hand in front each time, alternating. Right foot or right hand forward, and then next time, left hand forward. We'll do one more option from our wide-legged position, bringing ourselves down onto that imaginary stool again, bringing the hands to the inner thighs, and dropping one shoulder in towards the midline. Breathing in to rise up, and breathing out to twist. Once you're feeling even and balanced, come back to center, taking a last moment in that low, wide-legged squat, and then pressing up all the way to a standing position. Release your hands and turn back towards the top of your mat, taking a strong step forward into mountain. Take a breath. From here, we're going to come back down to a standing forward fold. So inhale and reach the arms up and overhead. And as you breathe out, gently hinge from your hips, coming down into your forward fold. If you'd like to deepen this a little, you could even try Padahastasana, hands to feet pose, by stepping all the way onto your hands so that your toes rest in the crease of your wrist. Take a little halfway lift to prepare. And then slowly release down. Eventually, release your hands from under your feet and place them right on your mat with fingers spread, index fingers pointing forward. From here, we'll step back 1 foot at a time and make our way into downward facing dog. In this first downward facing dog, you might turn your head from side to side. And then shake your head up and down. Eventually, lower your knees to the ground and take a little rest in child's posture. This is a good opportunity to check in and see how you're feeling so far. When you feel ready, we're going to move right from our child's pose into a kneeling vinyasa. So with arms outstretched, plant into each finger pad and into the heels of your hands and shift forward to your kneeling plank. From here, take a little extra shift forward and slowly lower all the way down, belly to the floor. When you're ready, Roll up to Cobra. And then release back down, pulling through your abdominals and pressing through your hands to return to child's posture. We'll do that again just a couple more times, moving with your breath. Inhaling forward, exhaling down, inhaling up, and exhaling down and back. Let's move through one more time. Plank, Chaturanga Dandasana, Bhujangasana, Cobra, and Utthita Balasana, Extended Child's. From here, slowly make your way into an all-fours position, tabletop. You can stay facing the front of your mat, but I'm going to turn towards you so that this next part is a little easier to understand. From where you are, imagine that you're ducking under a low fence, and bring your right hand out to your side as your left leg stretches away. So now you find yourself here in a modified side plank, or a kneeling side plank. Then dip back under that imaginary fence and come to the other side. We're going to move back and forth between sides. You can take your top hand to your hip, dip underneath, and come into your side plank. Dip back through the center, back to your kneeling side plank. You can add all sorts of fun variations here. I'll show a few. Maybe you reach your top arm up and over, taking an extended side plank, adding a side bend stretch. Or maybe you lift your top leg up, adding a little bit of strength work. When you're feeling even and balanced, make your way back to center and take a little rest in child's posture. We'll move right from child's pose into our first downward facing dog. Actually, I think we did one earlier, so our second downward facing dog, Adho Mukha Svanasana. We'll tuck the toes and pull back. This time, let's take a few double knee bends, bending both knees and then straightening both legs. And when you're feeling complete, make your way to the front of your mat into a halfway lift and a forward fold. From here, press into your feet to rise all the way up to extended mountain. Bring your hands to your heart center and take a few breaths here as we prepare for some sun salutations. When you feel ready, circle sweep the arms up overhead and hinge from your hips down into a forward fold. Take a look forward and step back with one foot. Follow with the other into your plank pose or into your kneeling plank. Take a little shift forward and lower halfway down or all the way down to the ground. From here, we'll lift into Cobra, or if you just came halfway down, you might be an upward facing dog. From wherever you're at, begin to press back tuck your toes, and we'll meet in downward facing dog. Just taking a few breaths here. If you were leading with your right leg, lead with your right leg again to step forward, taking a little lift of the torso in your lunge, and then stepping your opposite foot forward. Halfway lift, forward bend. Circle sweep up, maybe even adding a gentle back bend, and then return to mountain. Take a breath. And we'll do the same thing, leading through the whole cycle with the left foot. Reaching up, Uttanasana, extended mountain. Uttanasana, forward bend. Ardha Uttanasana, halfway lift. And then step back with your left foot, and then your right into plank. Take a little shift forward. Feel free to drop your knees to the ground, and we'll hover halfway down. We'll come to the tops of the feet this time for upward facing dog. And then we'll tuck our toes and pull back to downward facing dog. Taking a few breaths here. When you feel ready, guide your left foot forward to the front of your mat, and then follow with the right, taking your time to take a halfway lift. And slowly return to your forward bend. Press into the feet, circle sweep up, and take a back bend. Complete your sun salutation by returning to mountain. We'll go through one more like that on each side. Reaching up, folding down. Looking forward and stepping back to plank, and shifting through our vinyasa. Remember, you can have your knees up or down. Step forward into your halfway lift. And hinge forward down into your fold. Press all the way up through extended mountain into a gentle back bend. And return to Tadasana, mountain posture. We'll complete our sun salutations with one more cycle, leading with the left foot the whole time. Breathing in to reach, breathing out to fold down. Step back to your lunge, move back into plank, and shift forward, hovering halfway down. Coming up to upward facing dog, and then pulling back to downward dog. When you're ready, step your left foot forward and follow with the right, taking a half lift and then taking your bow. Soften the knees, press into the feet, and circle sweep up to your back bend, returning at your own time to mountain. This is a good time to pause and check in, notice your breathing, notice the warmth that you've created in your body. From here, we're going to go down into a forward bend again, this time with an option to take it a little bit deeper. Begin like we have each time so far, by reaching up to extended mountain and hinging down from your hips. Of course, you can keep your hands on the floor or your blocks, or revisit your toe hold or hands to feet. But if you feel like you want to go a little deeper, you might try heel-toeing your feet a little closer together so that your big toes are touching, and then holding on to the backs of your calves. Allow your torso to drop down. When you've had enough of that, bring your hands back to the floor and end your feet away from each other once again. From here, we're going to make our way slowly back to tabletop. We're going to move into a side plank, and you can start with that kickstanded version that we already tried. So again, I'll turn to face you. And then from here, we'll reach forward and send one leg back. Maybe you stay right here for a few breaths, or try that other option of lifting the top leg, or maybe you want to try coming into a lifted side plank, sending your bottom foot forward and staggering the feet. You can even try reaching forward into your extended side plank. When you feel like you've had enough, come down to your forward-facing plank or tabletop position and take a breath. We'll do the same thing on the other side. Of course, you can draw your leg in and kickstand, or if you're coming into that full side plank, it might be just as easy to transition directly from plank. After a few breaths there, make your way back to your full plank or your tabletop position. Lower the knees to the ground and press back into your child's pose. From here, if you need a little bit more time to rest, stay right where you are. If you'd like to add a little more flow, come with me through an optional vinyasa, shifting to a kneeling plank, lowering all the way down to your belly, rolling up to cobra pose, lowering back down, and then meeting together in child's pose. When you feel ready to move on, tuck your toes and lift back to downward facing dog. Slowly walk your way or step to the front of your mat. Taking another halfway lift and a forward fold. From here, make sure your feet are hip-width distance apart and press in to rise all the way in. We're going to move directly into a chair pose, otherwise known as Uttanasana, which means fierce pose. You might keep your hands right at the center of your chest. Continue to breathe. Or you might reach your arms up and overhead. Or maybe you bring your arms parallel to the ground and try lifting one heel or both. When you're feeling finished, bring your heels back to the ground and return to mountain. Take a breath. From here, we're going to move into a warrior sequence. So keep your right foot at the front of your mat and step your left foot directly back. There will be space from side to side between your feet, as if you're standing on train tracks rather than a tightrope. Circle sweep your arms up and overhead and take about 3 breaths here in Virabhadrasana, Warrior One. From here, we'll transition right back into Warrior Two, edging your back foot back and aligning your front heel right about with your back arch. Again, we'll take about 3 breaths right here. From here, we'll get ready for Trikonasana, triangle posture. We'll straighten the front leg, take a little reach forward, and come down to your shin. Or if you have a block handy, you can place that right inside of your front ankle and place your hand on the block. You might look down, straight out in front, or up towards your top hand. If you'd like to get some length through the side of your body, try stretching your arm all the way out towards the space in front of your mat. Eventually, we'll reach that top arm back up, slide the bottom hand up, and return to Warrior Two. Now, you could simply step forward and then step all the way to the front of your mat. But if you'd like a little more flow in between sides, come with me through this vinyasa. Coming up and over, turning your back toes forward, stepping back to plank, shift forward to Chaturanga Dandasana, into the tops of the feet for upward facing dog, Urdhva Mukha Svanasana, and then pull back to downward facing dog, Adho Mukha Svanasana. This time we'll come into our Warrior One right from downward facing dog instead of stepping back from mountain. So we're already ready to transition. Just lift your left leg up and step it forward to the space right between your hands. You'll probably need to reposition your back foot, turning the toes out slightly, building a firm foundation, and then coming all the way up to your Warrior One on this side. Again, we'll take about 3 breaths here. When you feel ready to transition to Warrior Two, rotate your pelvis away from your front knee and edge your back foot back. Make sure you keep a really deep bend in your front knee and that your back leg is nice and long. From here, we're all set up to transition to triangle. Begin to straighten your front leg, reach forward, and come down. Remember that option to reach out. Eventually slide all the way back up to your Warrior Two. Take a breath. And just like we did on the other side, we'll bring the front hand to the hip and take the back arm up and over like you're taking a big swimming stroke. Turn your back toes forward and step back. This time, instead of taking a vinyasa, we'll take the knees down and take a moment in child's. When you're ready, tuck your toes and lift back to downward facing dog. We're going to step the right foot forward this time. So give a little lift up and step it forward, returning to warrior one again on this side. You can always do warrior one with your hands at heart center or up and over your head. It's up to you. This time we're going to add a pyramid pose, Uttanasana. Begin by taking a little bit or a lot of that bend out of your front knee. Lengthen up through your spine and slowly begin to hinge forward, bringing your hands to the floor or to some blocks if you've got them. From here, we're going to move right into a revolved triangle. If you don't have a block to place your left hand on, come all the way up onto your fingertips so that your shoulders are about as high as your hips. Then start to revolve by reaching up through your right arm and stacking your shoulders. When you're finished, bring both hands to the ground and step back to downward facing dog. We'll do the same sequence on the other side. So give a little lift to your left leg and step it forward, finding your way into warrior one. After 3 or 4 breaths here, begin to lengthen your front leg. You might even reach up and overhead, coming down into pyramid pose, Uttanasana. After you've taken several deep breaths in your pyramid posture, begin to lift your torso up again so that your shoulders are as high as your hips. From here, we'll go into our revolved triangle, Trikonasana. Again, a block is really helpful, but I didn't grab one before I started recording. So I'll come up onto my fingertips here. Maybe you just bring your hand to your hip. Left hand is on the hip, or you can reach all the way up. When you've had enough time there in your revolved triangle, gently bring your hand back down to the earth. And this time, instead of stepping back to our downward facing dog, we're going to step forward to a halfway lift. And then take your bow, forward fold, Uttanasana. It might feel good to give your head a little shake. bend your knees. And then start to find your foundation on your feet. We're going to come into a warrior three position, but a lot of times we come down from mountain pose or even warrior one to a ride. This time we're going to try lifting up, which can be really challenging. So start by coming up onto your fingertips and then picking a leg to stand on. Send the opposite leg back. If this is feeling good, you can try bringing your hands to your hips or even to prayer position or up and overhead. Eventually bring your feet back to the ground and slowly release all the way down. We'll get ready for the other side by coming into a halfway lift. Stabilize on one foot. Begin to lift the opposite leg. And maybe you just stay on your fingertips. Maybe you bring your arms out to your sides or reach them up and overhead. Eventually release down and take your bow. Once you're feeling solid on your feet, press in and rise all the way up. We're going to do one more standing balance posture, tree. So you can stay facing the top of your mat. I'm just going to turn to the side so that you can see me more easily. Pick a leg, either leg, on which to begin, and externally rotate the opposite hip. You can stay just like this with the ball of your foot on the ground, or you can lift up to your inside of your calf, or you can lift up to your inner thigh. Just make sure that you don't press into the knee joint. When you're ready, release and switch sides. Remember, it's okay if your tree rocks a little bit or even if you fall out. Even coming in and out of a balanced posture is really great balance practice. If you're feeling steady on this side, maybe you try reaching your arms up and overhead like an extended mountain. Eventually, release, and maybe even shake it out a little bit. We'll move back to the top of the mat if you've gone away from there, and reach all the way up to extended mountain. Slowly making your way into a forward fold. Take your time to step back to downward facing dog. And from here, we'll shift forward to plank. Lower the knees to the ground and lower the torso all the way down. We're going to get ready for a little prone spinal extension or back bending. So right from where you are, bring your arms alongside the body for Balasana, locust posture. Imagine that someone's grabbing right behind your chest and helping to pull you up. When you feel ready, lift the arms and the legs. If you feel like adding a chest expansion here, you could even clasp the hands. When you feel complete, lower down and allow one cheek to rest on the ground. After you've taken a little time to recover, you can revisit that same posture or reach back for your ankles and come into bow pose. Again, when you're feeling ready to release, release back down, this time taking the opposite cheek to the mat. When you're ready, bring your hands near your ribs and press all the way up to a high kneeling position. From here, we're going to go into our camel pose, Ustrasana. Take a few shoulder rolls to prepare. You've already been doing some back bends, so maybe keep this one gentle and moderate. Bringing your hands right to your sacrum and imagining that a string is being pulled through the crown of your head. It's more important to get long through your spine and avoid collapsing into the low back or the neck than it is to go all the way back into a deep back bend. So just keep it easy. Think more about lengthening than about going as far as you could go. When you're feeling finished, do a little abdominal curl to return to an upright position, and then slowly release into a child's pose. Of course, you can do your typical extended child's pose, but after all that back bending, it might feel good to try an option like stacking your fists under your forehead, or even taking your arms along by your sides. Eventually, plant your hands underneath your shoulders and rise all the way up. We're going to take our legs out and around now and come into a seated staff. This is one of those postures that looks really simple, but it can actually be really challenging. If you find that your pelvis is starting to tip back into a posterior tilt, then that's a good sign that you might want to roll up your mat to sit on, or even sit on a folded blanket. If you'd like to try extended staff, simply reach the arms up and overhead. Eventually release your hands back down, and we'll get set up right from here to go into a reverse tabletop. For this, point your fingers forward. If you've got some wrist issues, you can roll up your mat a few times and lift the heels of your hands up onto your mat, just like this. Then, bend your knees and place your ankles right underneath them. Take a breath to prepare and slowly lift up. You might look down towards your knees or up towards the ceiling above you. Just make sure that you don't throw your head all the way back. Eventually, we'll lower all the way down and return to seated staff. From here, making sure again that you start with that neutral pelvis. Draw one foot in to your inner thigh. We're going to get ready for Janus Asana, which means head to knee posture. Even though that's the name of the pose, it doesn't mean that your head actually has to come all the way to your knee. Start with a nice tall spine and slowly begin to invite your torso down, about halfway to wherever you think your end point is going to be. Take a little stop there and just breathe. When you feel ready to go a little further, walk your hands down and allow your torso to fold a little deeper. Gently bring your hands under your shoulders and press back up to a seated position. When you feel ready, switch sides. Begin with a neutral pelvis or even a slight forward tilt of the pelvis. And once again, just come to about your halfway point. Take a few breaths there. If you feel like you'd like to go a little further, continue your journey down slowly and with your breath. When you're feeling finished there, bring your hands back under your shoulders and come back to your seated position. This time we'll try that forward fold with both legs outstretched. Take a long spine to prepare, breathe in deeply, and as you exhale, begin to hinge forward at your hips, tipping your pelvis slightly to the front of your mat. Your hands could rest on the floor or on your shins. And maybe you try one of those options that we did in our standing forward folds, like holding your toes or hooking your hands over your feet. When you're ready, bring your hands back under your shoulders and make your way up to a seated staff. We're going to move next into a seated spinal twist. This is another one where you might want to sit up on your blanket or elevate on your mat if you find that your pelvis is tipping back. We'll start out by drawing the right knee into the chest. And this might be enough. Just holding that knee with your left arm and twisting, bringing your back hand behind your body like a kickstand. If you'd like to go a little further, you can step your foot over your straight leg and let your elbow come past the knee. Eventually, release, take both legs back out to your seated staff posture and switch sides, drawing the left knee into your chest, simply holding on as you twist, or stepping it over your outstretched leg and allowing your elbow to cross the body. Your fingers might point up, or you can point them down. Just make sure you're not pressing really hard and leveraging into the side of your leg. Keep this twist internally supported, moving from your core. After you've taken several deep breaths on this side, make your way back to your seated staff one last time. From here, we're going to make our way down onto our backs. So begin by bending your knees and holding on behind one leg. Slowly begin to roll down onto your back and gather both knees into your chest. It might feel good to take a little rock from side to side. Eventually bring your knees down, or bring your feet down to the ground and roll your shoulders back and down, as we want them to be the point of contact for bridge. Make sure that your feet are stacked right underneath your knees, or as close to that place as you can. And then we'll press into the hands and feet and lift up. You can stay right here, or if this is feeling good, try clasping your hands and walking your shoulders back just a little bit further. Eventually release your hands and slowly roll all the way down to the ground. From here, we're going to move into Ananda Balasana, or happy baby posture. So, there are several different options, and I'll turn slightly so that you can see. We're going to take our legs into a goalpost position, and you might just start by holding onto your ankles or even your inner thighs. If you'd like to go a little deeper, you might choose to take your yogi toe hold and grab your peace fingers around your big toes. If this is feeling good, you can hold on to the outer edges of your feet. So any of those options is fine. Let your shoulders pull back and your tailbone root down, and take a few breaths here. Eventually, release your feet and gather your knees back into your chest. We'll end with one restorative posture before we move into final relaxation. If you've got a wall nearby, you can do legs up the wall right against it. If not, it can be almost as effective to do this without a wall, simply straightening your legs and imagining that you're standing on the ceiling. Allow your shoulders to release back and down. You might even try taking your arms into a goalpost position. When you're feeling ready to move into a time of restoration and relaxation, bring your hands back down by your sides. Lower one foot and then the other down to the earth, and then stretch the legs all the way out. If this feels uncomfortable to your lower back, feel free to put some pillows under your knees, or even rest your knees up on a chair or the side of your bed. Make sure you feel comfortable and well supported. You can stay here for 5 or even 10 minutes or longer, so feel free to pause the video now and take as much time as you'd like to rest. When you feel ready to come out, gather your knees into your chest. And roll gently to one side. Spend a few moments here to regroup and reground. And when you're ready, press all the way up to a seated position. Take a few easy, gentle breaths as you notice how you feel. And wherever you are, I hope you have a beautiful day or a peaceful night. Thank you for practicing with me. Namaste.